It's time for another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Stay tuned as we discuss local and national sports from Southeast Missouri and beyond. And now, without further ado, let's get on with the show. And welcome to another exciting edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
And live from the Ozarks, this is Mr. Man Kyle Roberts.
Welcome aboard, Kyle. It's good to have you back.
Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it.
First off, we are going to talk about one of the biggest highlights of the past week is that Mark got to go to a real live NFL game and got to catch the Vikings and the Titans from the press box of Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee, and also got to talk to a Minnesota Vikings receiver who has roots from the Bluff. Mark, tell us about it.
Well, it was a terrific experience. Of course, I've been a lifelong Vikings fan since I was a little kid. I'm one of the few people left in America who actually remembers the Vikings playing in the Super Bowl. Of course, that was their fourth and final loss to John Madden's Oakland Raiders way back in the 70s. But it's always exciting to see an NFL game live, especially when your favorite team is playing. I was granted press box credentials, so I got to cover the game from the press box, working journalist, and all of the things entailed with that. It's a great atmosphere. The people who work in the Titans organization did a great job, and it's a really nice facility, even though it looks like it's going to be gone in a couple of years because
that's right, new stadium coming.
New stadium under construction just right next door to the existing one. So kudos to the Titans organization for making it a really pleasant and professional experience. And yes, I did get to interview Jordan Addison, and I got to ask head coach Kevin O'Connell a question in the during the press conference, and even bumped into general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, who, unbeknownst to me, was standing right behind me in the press conference. So, yeah, it was a really terrific, one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences for small-town sports writers. So grateful to be there, and really want to encourage everyone to take a look at our story. You can find that online at darnews.com. You can also find a copy of the story itself on cmoball.com.
Or if you live in the area and you want to get a hard copy, pick up a copy of today's Daily American Republic. It's at newsstands everywhere, or at least close to Poplar Bluff.
That's true. We'll take a look at Week 12 coming up in the NFL. I'm only going to focus on 4 games. Most of the teams who are in the playoff hunt either have, at least on paper, easy matchups this week. Playoff-bound teams against teams who are jockeying for draft position, not really worth commenting on. And several playoff teams also have byes this week. So I'm really just going to look at 4 games. First one is going to be, of course, the Minnesota Vikings. I'm always going to talk about the Vikings. We're going to look at them at Chicago. Question is, can Vikings keep winning on the road, and can they win decisively over an inferior opponent? Yes, the Bears have looked better in some games, but they have not looked better the past several weeks. They've been losing badly. They should have beaten Green Bay last weekend, but they blew it at the end with poor coaching, poor decisions, and just poor special teams play. So while it is certainly possible in the NFC North that Chicago could rise up and win a home game against the visiting Vikings, I think that if the Vikings limit their turnovers and if their defense continues to put pressure on Bears rookie quarterback Caleb Williams and force him into making bad decisions, if they win the turnover game and if Darnold plays as smart and efficiently as he did at Tennessee, I think Minnesota should win that game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I'd love it if that were the case, but I think Minnesota will probably win by somewhere between 3 and 6 points when that game is over.
I could very well see that. And the Vikings, like you said, it was a little bit closer game in Nashville than we expected, or at least than I expected. Mark expected it to be close. I didn't.
Yeah.
Another game you're going to talk about are the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the lowly Carolina Panthers in Charlotte. Take her away.
Yeah, the question is whether Kansas City, how Kansas City will respond after its first loss at Buffalo. They're playing at a terrible Carolina team, but it is a road game in the NFL. I suppose it's conceivable that Kansas City could be suffering an emotional letdown after that Bills game. You know, Kansas City has been winning games on smarts and experience more than just dominating other teams. So it's possible that Carolina could keep this game close. It's funny because Kansas City this year has actually been experiencing the type of seasons that Minnesota fans usually do, which is you're playing against a team that you should win easily. The game is way closer than it needs to be right at the end, and then your team ends up pulling it out, but you don't feel really good about it. And, I know who the Chiefs are. They've got the best quarterback, the best coach, awesome defense. The problem is I could think of about 3 or 4 teams that when it came down to a playoff matchup, especially one on the road, who could and maybe even should beat Kansas City based on Kansas City's performance. Now, on the other hand, we were all saying the same thing last year. Kansas City's got to go on the road to Buffalo, on the road to Baltimore. There's no way they're going to make it. And then they made it, and then they won again. So, again, the vampire's not dead until they're completely dead, right? And I don't mean to compare Kansas City to a horror movie villain unless you hate them, and then you're welcome. But when you're dealing, it's like Tom Brady was with the Patriots.
Exactly.
Ask Atlanta fans or Matt Ryan about are they out of the game when you're winning 28-3? Not necessarily.
That was Kyle Shanahan's fault, not theirs.
Well, that's probably true too. But you still have to take that into consideration. So,
True.
My motto on this is nothing is done until it's all zeros at the end of the fourth quarter. You got to play right to that final whistle. I think Kansas City. Oh, sorry about that, folks. I think Kansas City should win this game, but the thing of it is, they should win this game by 3 touchdowns, and they're not going to. They're going to win this game by 7 or 10, and that's going to be it.
Yep.
And that game's going to be annoying because I live in the Ozarks. I've lived out here now for 9 years. Believe it or not, there are rational Chiefs fans that I run into, and they'll say, "Listen, we shouldn't have the record we do. We should have 3 or 4 losses already." But it's like with the Denver game 2 weeks ago. I was asleep actually during this ball game. I happened to roll over and see that Karlaftis blocked the field goal, and I said, "Oh, look, the plot armor kicked in again." It's gotten almost to a point of ridiculousness, like an episode of The Simpsons where they predicted the future. You just know what's coming. You're like, say the line, Bart. Kansas City should blow out Carolina. I don't think they're not going to be prepared. The Panthers, this is their Super Bowl because they're going to be in the top 5 of the NFL draft because I believe they do own their first round pick next year. But the Chiefs' defense will come to play. I think they're getting closer to getting Isaiah Pacheco back, and that's going to make a world of difference since Patrick Mahomes, and nobody wants to say the quiet thing out loud, hasn't been that good this year.
No, I think it's Super Bowl burnout. I really do. I think they have been, they've won 3 out of the last 4 Super Bowls. So you've got or 3 out of the last 5, excuse me. But for the past 5 years, the Chiefs have played either through the Super Bowl or at least to the AFC Championship for the last 5 years in a row. It's a grind. I think they're exhausted. And yes, a three-peat would be amazing, but there's a reason why no NFL team has ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row. The road is grueling, and frankly, I think they're exhausted.
Yeah, it's an insane slog when you actually think about 3 consecutive Super Bowl championships playing at the level that Kansas City has, especially in the postseason. That's why I think eventually they're due to hit a wall. I really do, and this may be the year. This Sunday's not going to be it. I've seen high school teams out here in the 4 states that could probably beat Carolina right now. I mean, that probably Nixa. Shout out to the Nixa Eagles, but KC should handle this. if half of the state collapses in on itself, that's because Carolina won.
Yes.
The next game I want to take a look at is out in the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals traveling up to the Pacific Northwest to take on the Seattle Seahawks. I mention this because Arizona is the Vikings' next opponent at home when they return to U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. And right now, Arizona is boasting a 4-game win streak, and they are sitting, surprisingly, at the top of an extremely mediocre NFC West division. Now, Seattle came from behind to beat San Francisco, who is just too destroyed by injuries and that same late playoff slog year after year. And I don't even think that San Francisco is going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think Seattle will either, but Seattle is tough at home. In fact, the Vikings' last home game of the season is going to be out there in Seattle. And we all have PTSD thanks to a kicker named Blair Walsh and a playoff game out there in Seattle. So the question for this week is, can Arizona sustain this winning streak playing at what most people in the league recognize as one of the toughest, if not the toughest place to play on the road, and that is against the 12th man up in Seattle. So I think Arizona is probably more talented than Seattle. They should win this game, but, you know, it's the Arizona Cardinals, and they are the descendants of the St. Louis football Cardinals, who have the absolute knack. I mean, it is losing when they should win is absolutely in their DNA.
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
There's a permanent stink attached to that franchise, no matter where they are. It's one of those when you think the Cardinals are good. It's almost like someone let them out of the basement. Like, who let you out of here? But with all credit to the fact that the NFC West, as a Rams fan, it's a very mid division, and we're not out of it. By the way, Rams host the Eagles for Sunday Night Football, which I think could be a sleeper matchup this week. I like a lot of what Arizona has, especially on the offensive side. Kyler Murray's healthy, and it definitely shows in how much more efficient and explosive Arizona's offense can be with his legs, and he adds an extra element to their run game, which was already strong last year with James Conner, who doesn't get talked about enough. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has had a very fine rookie season that also isn't talked about enough. That just kind of comes with being the Arizona Cardinals. When they're good, they're not talked about, and they're pretty solid this year. 12th man is always a problem in Seattle. My question is, if you're a Seahawks fan, can you trust Geno Smith in the fourth quarter?
Well, I mean, flip a coin. You know, he won the game single-handedly against San Francisco late in that game, but he could also just as easily throw a bad pick and lose that game to you. And I do need to mention one thing. I absolutely despise the Los Angeles Rams. What they did to St. Louis was an abject betrayal, and I always root against the Rams every single game. They have supplanted the Patriots as my most hated team in the league, and I hope that even though I don't think Philadelphia is as good as their 8-2 record, I hope Saquon Barkley runs all up and down that field this Monday.
And with all respect and thank you, and I've always taken the light of saying I don't like our management. I never have. I don't root for management. I root for players in our uniform. And the Rams are the NFL's vagabond franchise. They're originally from Cleveland. No one moves more than they do. But when it comes to that game, I don't believe that. I mean, I'm rooting for us to win, but I think it's going to be tough sledding because no matter how we cut it, and we have a pretty fine young defensive line, there is no replacing Aaron Donald. But Jared Verse and crew have done a solid job trying to supplant and rebuild our defense. Saquon Barkley is a grown man. That's a whole different level of a problem. When he's hurdling people in reverse, you might have a problem stopping the run.
Yeah,
so
he needs to make some space in his trophy case for the ESPY for Play of the Year for that backwards hurdle. Hey, we're going to stay out at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, where the Baltimore Ravens visit the Los Angeles Chargers. And the question of the day in this game is Baltimore more heft or hype? Every year Lamar Jackson is at the top of the conversation for MVP, but then, if you can't beat the Steelers, I know the Steelers are at the top of the AFC Central, and I have friends who are Steelers fans, and the Steelers won that game fair and square. They just out-toughed Baltimore. But Baltimore is supposed to be this tough team, this defensive team, and Lamar Jackson is supposed to be this all-generation quarterback, and the best that you can muster is 16 points. That's not good enough. If you're not good enough to beat the Steelers, you're not good enough to win that division. And so I'm voting for hype. I think the Ravens are more hype than heft.
Overrated. Kyle, thoughts?
Completely. Only on one side of the ball, because the perception of the Baltimore Ravens is to be this elite defensive team, but they are just an advanced version of the Washington Commanders. Neither team can stop anybody. And the fact is, the Pittsburgh Steelers, from the eye test, it's not pretty, but they play like the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Baltimore Ravens have the most explosive offense, especially in the running game this year. But will anybody make mention of the fact that they're 23rd in scoring defense? The Baltimore Ravens are 23rd in scoring defense, and they're dead last against the pass.
Yeah, and Jim Harbaugh is going to take advantage of that. He's lulled the rest of the league into a sense of complacency, saying, okay, Jim Harbaugh's a grind-it-out, run first, and the Chargers are going to try to run on Baltimore, but I think in this game, with going up against that poor pass defense, I think he's going to finally take Justin Herbert off of his leash, and he's going to be gunning downfield against the Ravens.
It's going to be fun to watch. And on that note, we are going to break for a minute. When we get back, we will have on Three Rivers men's basketball coach Robert Kirby. But before we go to a break, I want to tell you that the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle is presented to you by Royal Retros. If you see the throwback jerseys that I like to wear a lot, chances are I bought it from Royal Retros. They make some of the coolest throwback jerseys you will ever find. That's one reason I buy from them. And if you order from them today with the code SportsDesk, you can get 10% off your order. And we are back with the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. And joining us today is Three Rivers College men's basketball coach Robert Kirby. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here with you guys. Always good to spend time with good people.
Indeed. And, Coach, it's been a great year for the Raiders so far. We're off to a 6-2 start, which is our best start in 8 years. And more than that, I mean, you guys are making a name for yourself with the defense. I mean, you're often holding teams under 60 points a night. And I think there's been a couple. I think the last time we played, we held Pratt to under 50, which that was a pretty good Pratt team because that's one of those Kansas teams. Those Kansas teams are always good. And I'll let you go from there.
Yes, Pratt is a very good team, very talented, a lot of size, a lot of good guards. And, we were blessed to come out and play the way we played at the start of the game. I think that the hallmark of what we've been trying to install in our guys were the defensive side of the ball, and we spent a lot of time early working extremely hard on the defense side, and we're still trying to get our offense up to speed with our defense, and so our defense has been carrying us so far.
Indeed, and like I said, it's been great to see us back to being the Raider basketball team of old. You've been saying this a lot, the Raider way.
Very much so. That's what I was raised on here, and that's the only way to get it done in my book. It works. If it works, don't try and fix it.
Coach, we have got a matchup Saturday with Alney Central. That's a team that was really good last year, came in and beat us by 20, but I think they may be just a little bit down this year. I'll let you go from there on Saturday.
Well, they still average at 89 points a game, so I don't know if they're down. They're putting a lot of points on the board right now, and they've got some dynamic. You got three guys that's averaging right at just above 15 points a game, and they're putting. We hadn't been able to slow a team down like that I mean, they're putting a lot of points on the board, and we've got to do a good job of locating their shooters and then containing the ball. And they do both very well.
Definitely going to be a test for our defense. Next week, we have our annual Thanksgiving tournament. We're going to be playing Southern Arkansas University Tech, Motlow State out of Tennessee, and Northeastern Oklahoma A&M, which is, coming off a 27-5 season. I think they were ranked earlier in the season. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a very good tournament. And first off, I'd like to say this. I mean, I really want to thank our fans that have been showing up for the games. I mean, they've been great, and they don't have to come. They got a lot of other things they could be doing, but we really, our guys really enjoy you guys that are there and giving them that extra spirit during the ball game, because it matters. It matters a lot, and our guys really appreciate that. And we're looking forward to having a good tournament here this coming Thanksgiving break. They got 3 really good teams coming in here that can really give you a lot of issues if you're not careful. Motlow State is averaging a good number of points this year as well. They're younger, but they're very talented. And I don't want to jump ahead, but the Albany game is a game that's pressing right now. That's our most important game this year. It's our next ball game, and it's on the road to a very good Albany team.
There you go. And the Dungeon, which is what Albany's home gym is known as, is not it's not an easy place to win. That's one reason it's known as the Dungeon.
Yeah, and they'll sick those white squirrels on you too.
Yes, Albany, Illinois is known for its white squirrels. Coach, what's it been like being back home?
It's been great. It's been really a blessing to be here in a place that I'm very familiar with, and the people that are here, a lot of them are still here, still around, still supporting the program, and it's a welcoming feeling to walk out there and you're very comfortable. You don't have to figure out how to get around the town. I mean, although it's grown quite a bit, but it's a very welcoming feeling, and the guys have come in and done an outstanding job. We got 10 freshmen, and sometimes they act like 10 freshmen, but for the most part, they've been very good this year, really trying to do what's asked of them.
Great deal. Sounds great, Coach. Thank you so much. And that is Robert Kirby, the Three Rivers College men's basketball coach. Check out and see how the Raiders do Saturday at Albany, Illinois, if you're up to making the trip. If not, come on out to the Libel Family Sports Complex next Thursday, next Friday, and next Saturday for the annual Thanksgiving tournament. Get to see 3 nights of great basketball. And we are back with the sports desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. And we are now going to be talking a little bit of Missouri Tigers football. They are taking on the lowly Mississippi State Bulldogs on Saturday. And let's go from there.
Well, after
Do I have to do this?
Yes, we really do have to do this. After Mizzou's last-minute loss on the road at South Carolina, thanks for nothing, Mizzou defense, the question is what minor league bowl game awaits them. So, according to a story published yesterday by Eli Hoff of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, possibilities include the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, the Las Vegas Bowl, I have no idea where they're playing that, the Music City Bowl in Nashville at Nissan Stadium.
At least it's a nice stadium.
Exactly. The ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. I can't express to you how much I hate naming bowl games after their corporate sponsors. I mean, you might as well call it the Preparation H Hemorrhoid Bowl.
At least...
The Texas Bowl in Houston, that was a creative name, or the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, and so, I think Jacksonville is going to be the most fun place to play because that's where Missouri deserves to end up, is a trash game in a trash stadium in a trash city.
Maybe the Little Giant Vacuum Cleaner Company Bowl in Walla Walla, Washington.
I low-key think that a lot of folks are overreacting to this season. However, let's go to Duval and at least if we're going to go there, at least get hammered and have some fun. That was the worst. That was some of the worst tackling I've seen in a long time from a Mizzou defense on that final touchdown. That Rocket Sanders. Now, granted, he's a heck of a running back, and it seems like South Carolina's found their groove, especially with Lenora Sellers at quarterback. but that was, absolutely poor defensive aptitude, if you will, in that final play. And again, if you are someone who likes to drink, I do not recommend being a fan of this football program.
Now, we talked a little bit about this last week. Let's assume that Mizzou beats Mississippi State and then goes home the week after for their annual thrashing of the Arkansas Razorbacks, which I never get tired of. It's so much fun to watch.
Enjoyable.
But here's the reality. Mizzou is never going to be seen as a legitimate SEC powerhouse and or a college football playoff contender until they can beat Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Texas. You have to beat the big boys to be considered a big boy. And beating up on, mid-major conferences and squeaking by sub-tier programs like Kentucky and Vanderbilt just isn't going to get the job done. And I said this last week, and I'll say it again. Mizzou has to find a 5-star quarterback to lead that program. He being Eli Drinkwitz, needs to do whatever it takes to find an NFL quality quarterback who will come and lead the Tigers to the promised land.
Now, I'll tell you this right now. That is in the SEC now more than ever, as much as I still don't feel like we belong and will never be respected, no matter what we do in that conference. We're a black sheep. We did pick up a very high-ranked quarterback for the class of 2025. His name's Matt Zollers out of Pennsylvania, and I'm super, super impressed with him. But you still got to get him to pan out. Because our quarterback room, on paper, going into next year, there isn't one. Brady Cook will be gone. You got Sam Horn, whose priority is baseball, and he may never see the field at Mizzou at this point. Drew Pine, I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to make myself upset in my own house today.
If Zollers is the real thing, then put him out there as a freshman. I mean, why waste a season redshirting him unless they get someone out of the transfer portal who's already a name somewhere, who's already proved that he can win. I see no need to redshirt him. Why throw away an entire season when you can give your freshman a season of experience, and maybe if he does well, you can generate some excitement for the program, which is going to turn into more recruiting of those skill players and, I don't know, defenders who can make a tackle. That might be useful.
That just might help at this point. Currently, Matt Zollers on 24/7 Sports is a 4-star rated quarterback. He's the number 7 quarterback in the class of 2025 and has committed to us over Boston College, UConn, Duke, East Carolina. However, this whole defense thing, and I know we lost a lot due to the NFL draft, which shout out to last year's defense was magnificent.
Sure.
And it does make a difference. You know what this one team defense can't do is stop the run. We don't have a Darius Robinson to set the edge and be a disruptor. This is a team built on getting to the quarterback.
Here's
couldn't do that Saturday night.
Here's the thing, Kyle. I'm not worried about the defense because Missouri does have a good reputation as a team that produces first-round draft picks on defense, defensive linemen, linebackers, especially cornerbacks. I mean, Mizzou has plenty of players in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball, so I'm not worried about that. We're going to get what we need on defense, what we desperately need. And I love Brady Cook. I mean, he's a gutsy kid. I love someone from Missouri who wants to play for Mizzou. I mean, nothing is closer to my heart than that. But Brady's not going to get drafted. I mean, he's not even going to get picked up as a UDFA. He's an okay college quarterback. We need a star, okay? Yes. We need to find our Peyton Manning wherever he may be.
There is a difference, and like you hit the nail on the head. Brady Cook defines to me what a Mizzou man should be in every sense of the word. However, you're in the Southeastern Conference full of dudes. You need a dude. You need a Jackson Dart. You need a Quinn Ewers. You need a Jalen Milroe, a Carson Beck on a good week, a Connor Wigman on a good week, or a Garrett Nussmeier, so on and so forth. South Carolina has a dude at quarterback in Lenora Sellers with a massive ceiling.
You know what it is. I mean, with NIL, we just need to find a Missouri billionaire who's willing to pay up for the best quarterback in the country.
There you go.
So,
yeah, no joke.
yeah. So if there are any billionaires with either in Missouri or ties to Missouri, please contact us through our Facebook page, the Mike and Mark Sports Show. We would love to get some support from, well, let's be optimistic, more than one Missouri billionaire.
By all means. Sign distressed Missouri Tigers fans, at least in my case, since 1997, and yours is a little bit further back.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about my sports experience at Mizzou.
And I don't want to upset you today.
Yeah, I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future.
And part of that future is high school football. We still have 2 Southeast Missouri teams. Well, actually, I think 3, but 2 we're going to talk about still playing. Tomorrow night, the Jackson Indians make the trip to Kirkwood to take on the Kirkwood Pioneers, coached by former Mizzou legend Jeremy Macklin. And then on Saturday, the Dexter Bearcats make the trip to St. Louis County to take on Lift for Life Academy. And Mark, tell me about those.
Jackson has a 9-2 record. They've been scoring about 40 points per game while giving up about 21.5 points a game. They have their work cut out for them against Kirkwood. Kirkwood is 8-2. They're scoring 41.6 points while only giving up 14.2. They upset CBC last week, 28-26, and CBC was the consensus pick of all of the St. Louis sports media to win the Class 6 state championship this year. So that was really considered an upset. And when you look at Kirkwood's record, their wins have just been dominating, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And personally, being from Poplar Bluff, I find it hard to root for Jackson, especially if you're playing a team coached by Mizzou legend Jeremy Macklin. I mean, I still have my number 9 Mizzou jersey.
Nice.
J-Mac is the king. I think Dexter is going to have an equally steep hill to climb against the Lift for Life Academy charter. That's how they're listed at the Misha website. That is the strangest name of any school of any kind that I've ever seen. I'd like someone to explain to me what their name means. Anyway, on paper, it looks like Dexter has a big advantage, 44.4 offensive points per game against a ridiculous 8.7 defensive points given up. On the other hand, Lift for Life's record 7-5 with a 30 points on offense against 19.5 points given up on defense. But those 5 losses for Lift for Life were against Class 5 and Class 6 powerhouses. I mean, they played a lot of really big schools. So their losses were against programs that were much bigger than them, and their wins were pretty much dominating shutout wins. So, if Dexter doesn't take care of the ball and get their running game going quickly, they're going to find themselves in a hole, probably a bigger hole than they have for the past 2 weeks. And I'm sure their coach is going to be focusing on this, but they really have to start tackling better in the running game.
They definitely do. And another thing we're going to talk about as we get to the home stretch of the show, the Missouri High School Volleyball Coaches Association released their annual All-State team last night. We have quite a few people from Southeast Missouri on it. Majority of them are Class 1 schools, but Class 1 volleyball in this area is pretty good. And going to give a shout out to the following people from Advance, the trio of Addison Carlton, Emma Eilers, and Brogan Hawkins. From Bernie, Bailey Henry, and the Clarkton duo of Brinley Coward and Angel Johnson. In Class 2, the St. Vincent duo of Bree Rubel and Kate Rubel both made it. And in Class 5, Jackson's Katie St. John, who is headed to Southeast Missouri State next year, also made the team.
Well, terrific. Congratulations to all of our Southeast Missouri volleyball athletes, and best of luck as your season continues.
There you go. And that wraps up another edition of the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle. Tune in next week. We're going to be going a little early next week because of the Thanksgiving holiday, and we are hoping to have on Three Rivers women's coach Alex Wiggs. He is going to talk about their big trip down to Texas over Thanksgiving weekend, where they are going to be playing a couple of strong teams in Paris and Trinity Valley. And that's going to be a fun one. And for this week, I'm Mike Bueller.
I'm Mark Sanders.
I'm Kyle Roberts.
And this is the Sports Desk with Mike, Mark, and Kyle.